Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Meg. I am a yarn dyer under the name Megs & Co. and I am so excited that you are here because I have something really special in the pans for today. Thank you so much for tuning into my YouTube channel today. My name is Meg, I am a yarn dyer, and I am so excited for what's in these pans today because I am testing out some brand new yarn to me, and I'm really excited to take you along this journey. So let's see what we've got. In this pan, I know it doesn't look like much, it's just whitish blend yarn, but in this pan I'm so excited about this. So this is 100% mercerized merino wool, completely sourced from the US. So why is that important? Well, I think it's always important to be supporting our domestic wool producers. The US has a severe shortage of very fine merino wool, and generally the farmers that are making that really good, super squishy cashmere-like merino wool, I'm talking something that's like 18, 19 microns, they're generally going to sell it to either going to keep it themselves, dye it themselves, and sell it. I can name of a few that I go to when I go to like Rhinebeck, that they have like the most deliciously soft merino wool, or they're going to sell it to high fashion mill houses where it's going to go into your best suits, dresses, all of sweaters, the best of the best, those merino wool garments that go for hundreds of dollars. So in comes mercerized merino wool, and when I first got alerted to this wool, I was really excited, and honestly I'd never heard of mercerized wool. I'm familiar with mercerized cotton, but I am not familiar with mercerized wool. I have never knitted, crocheted, let alone dyed it, so I was so intrigued to give this a go. So again, back to why does it matter? Why is it important? What's so special about this? So in my learning, and I'm learning with you guys because I honestly just don't know a lot about it, but in my learning, this mill house has decided to, not just arbitrarily decided, but they have come up with a way to create their own line of mercerized wool. And the whole point of doing this is so that they can take domestic wool, merino wool, that is still fine, but just not that ultra fine. So this is wool that's about 21 microns. They can take that 21 micron wool, that's something like your standard sock yarn is usually around a 21 micron wool, just to give you like some context. And they can basically turn it into something that feels more like an 18 micron, or even something that's mixed with cashmere. And so it's a process that's very similar to superwashing. They do take a chemical that cleaves off all of the scales that are along the shaft of the fiber. It's those scales that stick and grab to our skin and cause friction and can make something feel itchy or scratchy. So they cleave off all of those scales and then do a silicone outer coating to again create something that is so soft. And in doing that, it creates something that is washable. They claim it is dryable, which I think is crazy. And I think I'm going to try it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. This yarn is like really precious. So I'm like, I don't know if I have it in my heart to knit something and put it in the dryer, but for science we might have to do this. But they claim it's washable, dryable, has a shine like silk, a drape like silk, but a softness like cashmere, and it is 100% merino wool sourced from the US. Sourced in the US, scoured in the US, treated, mercerized in the US, spun in the US. So its carbon footprint super low. We're supporting our domestic local fiber producers and having a product that is unlike anything that I have ever tried before. So that is what is in pan number 1. Pan number 2, I'm going to get some color on this. since we have the pan open. So what I wanted to do, the first thing, actually, never mind. Oh, hope I cut this out. So pan number two. Pan number two is also something that I am really excited about. It is another sock yarn. It is another fingering weight. But this one is a blend of superwash merino wool that is sourced from, it's either Australia or South America. South America. I'm gonna have to double check exactly where they get their wool from, but it is non-mulesed, responsibly raised merino wool. And it is more of a traditional sock yarn, so it's going to be about that 21 micron, which is still very soft, very great for next to skin. But again, when you do want a sock yarn or something that is going to be very durable for more heavy wearing items, the 21 micron is actually where you want to be. And the superwash process, again, cleaves those scales off, similar to the mercerized process, but apparently it's similar in that you get a washable yarn where those scales have been smoothed and then sealed with a silicone layer, but different in that it's, I guess, not as soft as mercerized wool. And I think the advantage to this is that it keeps a lot more of its elasticity. So it's a little bit more like the traditional wool that we're used to, where it has elasticity and bounce, versus this has more of a silky texture where you're going to get drape and shine, but not so much of that memory and elasticity. So this preserves the elasticity. The trade-off is it's not quite as soft. You don't have that buttery cashmere feel that you'd get with the mercerized. And it's also, but this is not why I was intrigued by trying this particular blend of 75% superwash merino wool and 25% nylon. Why I'm intrigued with this is because the nylon that is blended into this yarn is biodegradable nylon. And yeah, so I really needed to try this. I'm super intrigued by it. And so going back to why is that important? Why does it matter? Why do we care? So nylon, you see it in a lot of yarn. We add it to generally our sock yarn, a lot of times your garment yarn. But what is nylon? Nylon is a man-made material that is, it's a petroleum-based man-made material that is essentially plastic. Ooh, phone notifications going off. It's essentially plastic. And so because of that, you know, you're taking wool, you're taking something that is sustainable, it's good for the earth. Wool is naturally biodegradable, so it's not, you know, your wool clothing and your wool blankets that you're knitting from this, when it's time for them to return to the earth, they are actually going to compost and return to the earth. They're not going to fill our landfills with harmful chemicals. Nylon, unfortunately, is plastic. So we use it to create strength to our yarn so that it doesn't pill, it doesn't wear through, especially for socks, mittens, those things that are going to get a ton of wear. It's going to create a long-lasting garment, but the disadvantage is that nylon is really never going to break down. It's going to stay in our landfills forever. So when this came from a European mill versus this came from an American mill. So when I got informed that this European mill has been able to source a nylon to add to their spin that is completely biodegradable and is compostable, I was intrigued. I think that this is fantastic because we can, you know, essentially have our cake and eat it too, and that you can add your strength to your socks, add your strength to your sweaters, your mittens, again, any of those really hard wearing garments that we just don't want to pill or create holes. You know, we spend so much time knitting, and we want those garments to last just as long as it took us to create them, if not longer, and hopefully for generations. And that's where the nylon comes in. So if we can have something where we're getting that advantage, but we're also not taking advantage of the earth, I think that that is wonderful. So I definitely wanted to give this a go. because all of my sock yarn right now currently is just made from our traditional nylon that we're used to. So if there's a potential to sub it out for something that is compostable, I'm here for it. I want to try it. So the first step in my R&D process, or I should say anytime that I'm going to bring something new into the shop, step one is I have to dye it. I am a yarn dyer first and foremost, and if I don't enjoy dyeing it, well then I'm just not going to do it, because that's just silly. And it seems like, you know, kind of like a weird statement to say, like, I have to like it. If you've ever dyed yarn before, and yes, absolutely do it, go buy yarn, go dye it, it's so much fun, you'll start to learn that some blends just aren't as fun. Usually for me, it's just they require a lot more work. Maybe they need to soak a lot longer, they don't wash nice, a lot of times things just need to kind of cook forever. Yeah, there's just a variety of reasons. For me too, I love to speckle. So having something that is going to create sharp, vibrant speckles is a must for me. And so that's why I have an entire bin of my favorite speckling dyes that I'm going to start applying to these two pans. So let's get started. So I just added a ton of color to these pans, and I added colors that are generally challenging colors because I really want to test the limits of this yarn. So I just added a lot of pinks and purples, some of my favorite pinks and purples, but a couple of these dyes are also dyes that can be a little problematic in that they take a long time to exhaust. This one purple color, it's actually called Purple Pop. You can get it from Dharma, and it tends to take a really long time to strike to the yarn, and it also tends to bleed a little bit. So when I'm doing these R&D batches, these are the colors that I tend to try because, again, I want to really challenge and test this yarn to see exactly how well or how crappy it's going to take that dye. And I also just added a ton of color. I want to see how quickly these dyes are going to strike, especially when I wash it. I'm hoping to preserve a lot of these bright, sharp speckles that are here versus is it just going to take a long time to strike and create more of a wash of color. And so the colors that I've used too are dyes that I've had for a while. So I'm pretty familiar with how they work on different weights, different bases, even fiber versus yarn. So again, when I'm looking at it, I can kind of see and compare without having to do a direct side-by-side dye job with how those colors are shifting and moving. So I'm really excited about that. I love pink and purple, so already these colors are going to be fantastic. I'm not writing down what I'm doing. I like to take advantage of, you know, sometimes just playing, and especially with these, you know, true R&D batches where, you know, this isn't even yarn that I technically sell in my shop yet as a standard yarn base. So I'm giving myself creative permission to just play, just go with it, and just really see where the colors pull me. It's so much fun. It's why I just love doing this. So, generally these yarns are for sale. I'll probably be pulling a skein or two of each batch. I've got 5 skeins of each of the 2 different fibers. So 5 skeins of the, keep wanting to say recycled nylon, but the biodegradable nylon superwash merino wool and the mercerized merino wool. I'm definitely going to be pulling a skein or 2 of each because I need to knit it, crochet it, and that's test number 2 of how do I like working with it. And then usually I create some swatches and I'll abuse them a little bit. I think we're going to have to put a swatch of the mercerized in the washer and the dryer, again for science. So yeah, so anything that I don't need to do those tests on, I will offer up for sale. And if it's going to go into my shop, I'll make sure that it is uploaded to my shop before I upload this video. So definitely head over to the shop. You can shop all of my lab batches that are there. I love experimenting and developing. You know, unfortunately, experimenting means that there's only, you know, 5 to 10 skeins of that particular batch, but they're super special. They're treasures. And I love doing it. And if you guys want to continue to support that, then I can continue to dye these for you. So megsandco.com is where you can find my web shop. So I stepped away for probably a good 20 minutes just to give these batches some time to cook. Ooh, you can see how that color is really just blooming up and out of this pan. Just gonna clean up a little bit. This is looking good. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just turn these guys around. It's really just to ensure that I'm giving the pans some even heat. I use the kind of burner or hot plates that have like a big circle and a smaller circle, so sometimes the heat can be a little uneven between the big circle and the tiny circle. So just like to keep these turning around. Ooh. I love this purple color that I put in here, but it is that kind of spreader dye that gets everywhere. Yeah, so really excited. So giving things like a tap, it definitely looks like we've got it mostly fixed. I am getting a little bit of dye back on my finger. And I feel like you can see this is down, this was the end that was a little bit cooler. It's on the smaller burner. So I think you're seeing a lot more of the dye settling into the water and giving a more general wash of color. And this side we're going to get some nice poppy speckles, which is great. I'm not really seeing like a difference between the two in terms of how they dye quite yet. So I'm just going to kind of stir this up so that any dye that's sitting on the top is just going to get into the water and it can give everything a good wash of color. But I'm searching for white spaces where I can continue to add some color. And I'm also being a little aggressive with this. So again, I like to, because I'm testing, I want to test the limits. So I feel like when I'm generally dyeing for an order or something, I tend to be very delicate when I'm touching the yarn. This is superwash and this is mercerized, meaning it has been treated to be resistant to the heat. So I really should there's no risk of felting is what I'm trying to say. Versus if this was a non-superwash wool, I would be very gentle with it because it can felt with agitation. But I still want to challenge that. So I am going to be a little rough and pokey with it, you know, to again just see that that statement is really true as the mill says it is, that it's not going to felt on me. So far it looks great. And I will say one of the big differences that I am noticing is that this one definitely bloomed in the water. When they were both just side by side dry, they looked very similar in that they were, you know, very kind of skinny strands. They are both 4-ply. So they looked very identical on the table, and that is why I marked, I put like a tie that's different onto these ones, because I was nervous that I was not going to be able to tell the two apart. They felt very similar, even though they're two completely different processed wools. They looked similar because they're both 4-ply fingering weight. But once this one is in the pan, like, it has bloomed and opened up, and you can just, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like it's filling the pan a lot more. Versus this one, it's staying just basically how it looked as I got it. They are very similar in their put-ups. So the biodegradable nylon yarn is 470 yards per 100 grams. The mercerized wool is 450 yards per 100 grams. So it is a little bit plumpier. So the lower, the less yards that you have per gram, the fatter your strand is going to be. So that's how you can kind of compare yarns. It doesn't mean, so when a wool has, or a yarn has less yardage, it doesn't mean that you're getting less product, because these both are 100 grams of wool per skein. So you're getting the same amount of wool, the same amount of product, but depending on how thin or thick they were spun is going to be how many yards you get per gram, because a thicker yarn, like a bulky, it's most of your wool is going around and around and around, versus a nice thin strand, that wool is going to go farther, literally farther. So considering that this is 450 yards and this is 470, I can see that in the pan. I can see that this is just a little bit loftier, it has just a slighter thickness to it, even though they're both fingering weight wool. In my opinion, I would say that anything that is probably 400 yards, you know, maybe you could get to like a 390, but I think you're kind of bumping up to sport weight there. I would say anything 400 yards to about 470, 480 yards per 100 grams to me is a fingering weight wool. Once you start getting to 500 yards and above, I think you're kind of pushing into that super fine or lace weight. Once you start getting below 400 grams, I think you're kind of moving into sport weight. It's subjective. That's my opinion. I know you didn't ask for it, but I gave it to you. So I'm going to keep speckling on that note.
1 mile in fog patches and showers early Friday, but improving to greater than 6 miles on Friday morning.
Stars shining bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper sycamore tree. Dream a little dreamer.
Oh my gosh. It's the hard part of having a bun. It makes it really difficult to pull the mask up and off in a way that it's not like just ripping my own hair out. But anyway, this looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm really excited about this. Yeah. It's beautiful. So one of the things too that I'm noticing that's just a little bit different, and it's really just something that it can affect, you know, how one color looks versus the other on the different skeins, is that because this is a little bit more plump, the yarn is kind of coming up and out of the water a little bit more than the biodegradable nylon is. This just seems like it was very densely spun, and it's a little bit of a thinner spin. So it's settling down into the water. So in this pan, we're getting a little bit more of washes of color versus because the yarn is just like I said, potentially there was more air put into the spin, so it's a little bit plumpier. And then like I said, the strands are a little bit thicker. It's coming up out of the water. And because of that, I'm able to get a lot of very sharp, crisp speckles. Now, both pans started with the same exact amount of water. So I measure how much water goes into each pan, and then the same amount of, I should say, weight of wool went into each pan. And I also added the same amount of acid to each pan. Again, my scientific mind, I have to control all of those outside parameters just to make sure that I'm not giving one blend an advantage over the other. And I'm also not like doing a direct comparison. It's not like I'm gonna bring in one to the shop versus the other. I might not bring in either of these yarns to the shop. Honestly, I'm really intrigued. I think that they're both super unique, and I love how they both offer completely different benefits and advantages while also trying to benefit the fiber community, and this one by creating a product that doesn't exist in the US, and in this one creating a product that is environmentally friendly and sustainable. So will they come into my shop? I don't know. Those are those business questions that I ask myself all the time. Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, I have to enjoy dyeing it. Second, I have to enjoy knitting with it and crocheting with it. The garments have to look good. They have to last. The quality has to be there. The softness has to be there. And then third, there has to be a market to buy it. And that's something too, that when you get into products that people just aren't familiar with, I would say just from a business perspective, sometimes it is hard to sell those products. Because you have to tell people why mercerized wool is so special and why they need it and why they should want it. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but just as a business owner, you do have to take those things into account. Just because I believe in it and think it's the best doesn't mean that the purchasers are going to agree with me or also want it. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's kind of a little inside that you didn't ask for of being not just a yarn dyer, but a yarn shop and a business. But it's fun. It's all fun. I'm literally just enjoying watching these pans as I ramble on for no specific reason at this point. I am gonna throw the lids on. Like, I love this color exactly how it is. So now I have to say, I'm rambling because in my head I'm trying to decide if I want to just flip it and repeat it so that this is the color, or do I want to keep adding different colors? So I was kind of using my nutmegged recipe, and nutmegged is my kind of shop signature colorway, and that anything goes. So I love to layer on the dyes. I try to go for at least 20 to 25 individual dyes, and when those colors start to mix, you get secondary and tertiary colors that are coming together randomly and magically. So you get skeins of yarn that have 30, 40 plus different colors that you can see. Some of those dyes are going to break as they speckle. So one dye might actually break into multiple different colors, and then again, as they combine with each other, it's just crazy. So that was kind of my original intention with this. So I was going to flip it and then add some blues and some greens, but like, this is so beautiful. Like the way that this purple butted up to this like peachy color is just incredible. So these are decisions indeed to make. I kind of feel like I do want to add just a little bit more color. So I'm kind of thinking, I've got like a really good teal. I don't think that blue has a place in this colorway at this moment, but I do think I need to add some teal. Ooh, I've got, okay, I'm gonna add this. I've got this like lavender color. Oh, and I have wanted to add chartreuse. Chartreuse is a daring color. I think we're doing it. It's a test batch. We're doing it. There's no harm here. Okay, and then I think I'm going to flip this over and repeat a lot of what I just did, but I'm also going to add in some chartreuse, and some teal green. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to go upstairs, have a quick snack. I'm going to let this cook for, or just knock everything over. I'm going to let, okay, yeah, we still have like, we've got a lot of color in this pan still. So I am going to let this cook for about another half hour, because I want all of that color to exhaust and strike this yarn before I get it up and out of the pan and flip it. I just don't like when you pull it up and you have I put so much dye on here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have 7 colors on here so far. So if I were to just pick this up and let all those dyes run off the skeins and mix in this pan, I'm just gonna have a big happy pan of brown that I'm gonna then be setting the yarn into. And we have such beautiful, bright, brilliant color that I do not want to dull it and mute it down with brown. So I'm going to let everything have lots of time to settle and strike into this yarn. So I'm going to go upstairs, let it sit, let it simmer, let it do its thing, and then I'm going to come back and, unless I change my mind, do that plan that we just came up with. So see you back in 30 minutes. Well, not literally, because, you know, my 30 minutes, but it's YouTube, so see you back right now. And welcome back. So we are continuing with our 2 test batches of yarn. I think it's been long enough. I'm gonna give them a flip. Oh yeah, we're good, we're good. This water looks nice and clear, which is a great sign. I want everything to be nice and exhausted. Maybe a little bit of pink, but it's nothing that's going to turn things brown or muddy. So whenever I flip, I do like to kind of turn the yarn so that whatever was on the inside is now going to be on the outside, if that makes sense. Just to ensure that the skeins are as even as possible, batch to batch. It's not a perfect science, but it does help. Otherwise, I feel like you tend to get the one skein that's kind of shoved in the middle. If I kept it in the middle the entire time, then it's going to look really light compared to the skeins that are on the outside. They're going to look a lot more saturated, probably a lot more desirable. This pan is so much hotter because it is just noisy bubbling. Just doing a little skein rotation and just giving it like a look. I didn't really like look at that one, but again, you can see. So because this yarn, it just doesn't have the plump and loft that the mercerized has, and that's not a bad thing. So this is definitely just a denser, thinner yarn, and it's not a good or a bad thing that it doesn't have as much plump and loft. It really just has to do with how this is going to dye compared to something else. So because this is a little bit thinner and it's setting down into the water instead of plumping and kind of pushing up and out of the water, when I've turned it over, you can see that because this yarn was setting down in the water, the dyes are hitting the water and dyeing the water. So the back side actually has quite a bit of color compared to this side, which has quite a bit of white space. It's not necessarily a bad, like one is not better than the other. It's just a note that as a yarn dyer, if I want to make colorways consistent, you know, batch to batch, base to base, it's something that I just need to note. Because if I was going to develop this as a recipe, then I would need to note that something that's going to sit up and out of the water might need a higher water table if I want this effect. Or the opposite, if I wanted this yarn to look like this yarn, then I've got to lower the water table on this. So it's not so much of starting each pan with the same amount of water. I might have to adjust that depending on what I have going on. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to keep going. So my plan is, so I picked out a couple of different colors that were not on the top. So I think I'm going to start with those because I definitely want them to have a good play in here. I'm going to start with those and then kind of see where we're at and potentially add some of the colors that were on the other side to this side as well, but filling in the space around our two new players, which are going to be chartreuse. And you're going to know exactly which speckle is the chartreuse because it's chartreuse. It is bright, vibrant, wonderful. And then teal, which is like the exact opposite of chartreuse. Teal is going to be deep and bold and sultry. Yeah, so I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to put my mask on, get to speckling. This looks so good. Oh my gosh, like this might have to be a new colorway. Like I know in the beginning I said that this was going to be something that I'm just playing, I'm not repeating, but holy moly, is this beautiful. Like just all these little bits and bobs of color, just how they are mixing and interacting and playing, it is all happening just beautifully in the pan. I love it. So what I went ahead and did, in case you could see or not see, depending on the camera angle, is I did like a really thick band of chartreuse here, and then a thinner band of chartreuse at the top. And then I just kind of went all in with the teal and went everywhere. So you'll have bits like where there's teal and chartreuse, and then bits of like just teal, and it is so good. I love the way that the chartreuse is laying on like these bits of pink and peach. It's really contrasting and popping, so it's like you really get to see that speckle. Like it's so good. So I'm really happy with this, and I think I need to stop. I think that it's beautiful. And I'm really curious to see how this is going to look out of the pan. It always lightens up a little bit, and I think especially with this pan, I think you're going to see a lot of white space, which is great. Because I want to see how those speckles really look on the yarn. So I actually don't want to like fill in too much space, and then we can't really tell how well or not well this yarn is speckling. So yeah, I think I'm done. So I'm going to wash this, dry this, and I guess stick around for part 2, where I will show you guys exactly how it came out. And yeah, and definitely I'm going to get this on the needles. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I am so excited. These are so unique. And especially the mercerized wool, just because I've literally never ever had mercerized wool on the needles or my crochet hook. So like I am very intrigued and very excited to knit and crochet with this. I'll definitely be doing a bunch of swatches. I feel like I definitely want to take a whole skein and maybe make like a shorty sock, you know, something where I can like really test out exactly how it wears. And now that I'm thinking about it, so the whole idea is that this is supposed to be more of like a super soft, like kind of cashmere-like yarn. So I'm almost wondering if like a sock is just not appropriate because it's not really what this yarn was intended to be for. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my skein. If you guys have any ideas, drop it in the comments. I love getting your feedback. I love seeing your comments and your questions. And yeah, I'll probably definitely be brainstorming to see if there's any projects on Ravelry that use a mercerized wool. I don't even know if that's a sorting option. And again, because I've never even like swatched with it, I'm just not sure. Like, I know that it's meant to be more of like a silk and super drapey, but like, you know, should I be looking at more like cotton and silk like projects versus just wool projects in terms of like what this is going to substitute for? So that is going to be my homework, to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with my test skein. And I'll do that while this is drying and whatnot. And then when we check back in, probably in another week, hopefully I'll have at least a little bit to show you knitted up, depending on the size of the project. I definitely will not have a whole project, but I can at least show you some swatches that I've worked on, and maybe you guys will have some ideas for me in terms of like exactly what I should cast on to test this. So because this is a little bit more of like a standard traditional wool nylon blend, I'm not like as clueless, for lack of a better word, on like what to make with it, and maybe a shorty sock is what I should do with this, and then I can test like how well it holds up. And oh my god, so now I'm actually kind of wishing that I did put a skein of just like the sock yarn that I currently sell in my shop because it would have been really great to make one sock with like with my normal wool and then one sock with this, and then I could test them side by side. But I can still do that. I can still knit 2 shorty socks and then test them side by side. They don't have to match, and I'll figure it out. But that might be the best test for this because again, the nylon is meant to be something that is going to wear hard and endure what we throw at our garments. So I really want to test it to kind of make sure that like is it going to be just as good as the regular nylon, but also just the fact that it's biodegradable. Do we actually need it to be just as good, or if it's close, is that enough? I don't know. I don't know until I get it on the needles, until I try it, until I see what our garments look like and what they can hold up to. So I'm excited. Anyway, now I'm rambling, so I am going to check out, sign off. Make sure that you are like and subscribe to my channel. If you like the video, it really helps to promote the video to, you know, potentially others that have similar interests in the video that you watch. It'll recommend this video to other people because of that good old algorithm that we all love to hate. And make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Every time I post new content, if you are subscribed, it should automatically go into your feed. And again, subscribing to the makers that you enjoy to watch really does help to give us that little bit of boost that costs you nothing. So I really hope that you stick around for part 2, maybe part 3, and I'll see you next time.
From above, everyday would seem turning into love song.